here we are at Sugar Ray's record room, Triple R Studios, and the great man, and I say great because
everyone.
He's the best, Sugar Ray Nosti.
Welcome everyone to my studios, and I'm just looking at all my albums here, and I thought I was going to have someone who was on an album like The Temptations, but apparently I got the wrong person.
I've just pulled a Steely Dan album out. We love Steely Dan.
Yeah, it's a very ecstasy. You count down to that ecstasy, yeah.
And down the end, as always, at the other end of the table, Mike Big Roy Whitney.
Dawsey,
how are you, mate?
Achmunde, lovely to see
champion.
you, brothers.
Go, buddy.
And I'm Andrew Dawsey Dawson, and as we do always, Widow, we'll hand it over to you to introduce our next guest.
Thank you very much, Dawes. Now, we've only delved into the political side of podcasting with Peter Beattie, who we spent near an hour with in Vegas. We didn't talk a lot about politics, but that's going to change today with today's guest. I'll just give you a brief intro before I introduce our guest to the How's That podcast, the podcast. Police officer for 22 years, represented Dubbo for the National Party in politics from 2011-2019. What about this list?
Go.
Minister for Hospitality, Gaming and Racing, Minister for Arts in 2014 under Mike Baird's first government, Minister for Justice and Police, Minister for Racing, Minister for Arts.
Sounds like Volandis. Sorry.
From 2015 to 2017 under Mike Baird's second government, Deputy Premier and New South Wales National Leader from 2014-2016. Minister... Big breath.
Sounds like Neville Wran now.
I'm sucking in a big breath, mate. I feel like I've bowled a spell. Minister for Police and Minister for Emergency Services under Gladys Berejiklian, appointed the Chairman of the International Rugby League in 2021 and currently Inspector General of Water Compliance. First person to have this role for the Murray-Darling Basin from 2020. Would you please welcome Troy Grant? How's that?
Hey, lad.
Jesus, Troy, I'm exhausted.
No, it's
I'll have to have a banana nap after reading all that.
Yeah, form of this, form of that.
I'm going to use a word, sorry to interrupt you, mate. I always say that's unbelievable, but I'm going to say my new word is going to be remarkable. That is remarkable. Honest to God.
Yeah, it's a CV I'm proud of, but
well done,
came
mate.
with some bumps and bruises along the way as well.
It doesn't matter, Troy. People ask me about my professional life with the cricket and the television, and it's never without its ups and downs, isn't it? I think they think about people like us that we're always up and buoyant and doing whatever, but we're only human beings, and we all have the big ups and downs. I'd like to start right at the start. Born in Maitland.
Yeah, Maitland family, Scottish heritage, came over from Scotland, then landed in Burke, of all places, out west.
Wow. Jesus.
And then an ancestor married into...
Jeez, mate, there wouldn't have been much in Burke back in those days.
No, there wasn't. No, my ancestor was the second ever police magistrate, ironically, at Burke. So there's a fair bit of law and justice in the family genes that I wasn't aware of too many years later. But
That's cool.
and then
That's cool. Sorry, go on.
You're right. And then, left Burke and ended up in the Hunter Valley dairy farming. And that was going to be my future until the family eventually sold when I was about 14. So I missed that career, thank Christ, of waking up at 3 a.m. to milk cows and putting them to bed at 3 p.m. So, and then the old man was in the cops as well, so transferred around a bit and raised up in the bush.
Wow.
Where did you go to after Maitland?
Out to Moree in western New South Wales.
And was that because your dad got transferred out there in the coppers?
Yeah, exactly right. He was out there for a few years. Had twin sisters born out there, and one died as a child and is still buried out there. So still go out to Moree a bit to visit her grave, and it's got a connection with the community. And then into the Tamworth region, where I essentially grew up, going to school and all that. Played every sport possible on offer, as all country kids do. Rode motorbikes, rode horses, hunted, fished, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I had a great upbringing in the country.
And started the Tamworth Country Music Festival.
Yeah, I didn't start it, but I tell you, as a teenager, you cashed in, right? So this is for, I think, one of my best mates his dad owned the Tudor Hotel in Tamworth, and so we used to sell beer cans out of a freezer out the front of the pub and made an absolute killing because
Hang on, how old
man didn't see all the profit.
How old were you?
14 through to 17. So 3 prosperous years, boys. 3 prosperous years.
Very good.
Please continue.
Hey, listen, I've got a note here says you can speak some Wiradjuri.
Yeah. When I was got interested in the Aboriginal culture, so I really hate what they call black politics or Indigenous politics, but I'm a massive fan of Indigenous culture, and I just don't think it's valued as much by our nation as it could or should be. So I took it upon myself working in highly predominant Indigenous communities to get to understand it. I used to run a lot of youth programs as a cop, ran a boxing club out of Warriner, had a couple of state champions and Marana champions in the stable, and one national champion ultimately. And just thought, if I'm going to be working with these kids, I've got to also try and help connect them to their own culture, because the reality was their parents and their seniors just were that alcohol and drug affected and all the rest of it dysfunctional that they weren't going to get a chance. So that's how I sort of stumbled into it, and then moved into the Dubbo area where the Wiradjuri Nation is, and learnt the language when I went into Parliament.
Mate, I grew up, luckily, in Matraville behind River Beach, played rugby league for La Perouse with the Ella brothers, and got a very big touch of culture growing up there. But shooting Sydney Weekender, I spent a lot of time on country with Indigenous brothers and sisters, and a lot of time in national parks and stuff like that, and realised that their culture is so deep and amazing. And my question is, you just said it, why don't we value it enough? Because it is the oldest living culture in the world. It's amazing. I mean, the more I learn about it, why don't we value it enough, Troy?
I think largely, and I don't mean this to be controversial in any way, but
please be controversial. It's all right.
Yeah, we'll pay you.
Yeah, there's definite black-white issues in our country, but they are absolutely overshadowed by the Indigenous versus Indigenous issues. You can't get the buggers to agree on anything from community to community. They're very tribal in their wants. They're very family orientated, so you just can't get unity in a lot of things. And I tried to get some artwork done for my electorate office that represented the Wiradjuri Nation and the electorate I represented. It took me 18 months to get the 7 tribes in Dubbo to agree, and I couldn't, so I just went ahead and got a really nice art piece done for the room. They all loved it. So that's a bit symbolic of probably why that they don't help themselves in a lot of cases, just because they can't agree and there's too much infighting, which is really frustrating and disappointing.
What about the decision to join the police? And again, I'd say that was influenced by your dad being in the coppers and that family history of the police.
Funny enough, it wasn't. Because the old man was in the police. So when I was 9 or 7, I'm just trying to remember, 7 I think I was actually, the old man got kidnapped and tortured in the police.
What?
North of Tamworth, a little place called Tittenhole, and I'm not joking, that's legitimately a place, Tittenhole. Yeah.
Love it.
I'm laughing about the name, not your father getting kidnapped. Yeah.
No, it's all right. He came across some escapees from the old Indian Plains prison, and back then, very limited radios and comms and all that sort of stuff out in the bush, and there was 4 of them, murderer, a couple of armed robbers, and that's some pretty bad dudes, and they jumped him, single copper by himself, tied him up to a tree, broke his back, chewed half his ear off, played Russian roulette with him with his thing. So he had it pretty tough for a lot of his life and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't. You're in the police family no matter what. As a kid of a policeman and Christmas parties and all the rest, you get to know the other police officers and their families. So it wasn't really him. It was actually my mate at the time. He was desperate to join the police force. I was about to start a career at TCN 9 and 8 as cameraman in the newsroom.
Oh, wow. TCN 9, that's the good old days.
Yeah, wasn't it?
They were. Now Prime 7.
Yeah,
they're out there. I just started a cadetship out there in Tamworth, and then receivership came in the industry. So it was last in, first out, and I'm thinking, oh, Christ. So it was good mates with the station manager, Bill Morrison, out there through a family connection. So he gave us the heads up, and I went down and actually interviewed at Channel 10 and as a production cameraman, and I was going to do that and move to Sydney, but just being a bush boy, I didn't want to make the move. And so my best mate who wanted to join the cops, that was his whole ambition, talked me into applying to go with him. I got in and he didn't. So that's how I ended up in the cops. So when I told the family, they were shocked because it was nothing I ever aspired to do.
Yeah. Troy, can we just backtrack a bit to your dad who got kidnapped and that? Was that big news at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. But, it was the 70s.
So no
not
mini-series, no book, no nothing? Was there anything?
No.
Nothing?
No. Oh, none of that nature, no.
Well,
and back then...
anyone listening here on this great podcast, there's something there.
That's a crazy story. I wanted to ask you about this. Look, I've met a lot of people that have been in the police, and there's a couple of questions here. What's the association with police and politics and police and rugby league, which is pretty big?
Yeah.
But you're in the coppers for 22 years. Mate, every day you go home, like there's not a lot of good news being a policeman, is there? You're dealing with... mundane things right down to the worst things that can happen in society. I mean, how do you deal with that on a daily basis being a policeman?
Yeah, look, it can be tough. And I had, most cops, you have some horrendous things to stick with you for life. And some police have more than others, and the cup runs over at times. And I suffered depression and anxiety throughout my career at different stages. And it's really different to my old man's example. He didn't get any support whatsoever, so he started to drink pretty heavily just to deal with the difficulties and stuff. So that was his coping mechanism, and he was told, have a spoon of concrete and toughen up. So he just didn't talk about it in his era.
Yep.
My era, they were starting to recognise that you needed support, but your mates and your family are the ones that get you through the tough times. Now it's far more professional, far more engaged, and a lot more awareness and services are available now. So it's like most things in life. There's been vast improvements as knowledge has grown and stuff. But, there's been some really tough periods. Children deaths, I've had a fair few of those. They're the ones that probably impacted the most. I did a lot of pedophilia work, so I locked up some pretty bad dudes in that subject matter, which is not the greatest topic at all to have to deal with. And, you get some really horrific, incidents like massive car crashes and some lot of carnage and the sort of stuff that you got to deal with somehow. And it's a copper's lot, they say, and all our emergency services for my whole life will always have my full respect and admiration for everything they turn out to do, and never get rewarded as they possibly should, and get over scrutinised at times as well. So it's a pretty tough gig.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about just one investigation that you led. I won't even mention the guy's name, but he was a Catholic priest. You made a statement during that, I think after he was convicted, there's nothing I would not do in order to protect the children of New South Wales. Again, I go to you, when you're doing investigations like that, and more information and more subject matters coming out, you must go home at night time and just shake your head sometimes, mate, and say, what am I actually dealing here with? This is just that over the top and bizarre. You can't believe that people would behave in this manner as a human being.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, it's really hard. And my mates used to ask me about it, and my family, and say, how do you not throttle these people? Because a lot of them, go into detail and tell you what they actually do. They confess and stuff like that. So that's, and at the stage, you do, there's nothing unnatural about it. You feel like smacking them in the mouth, and getting some sort of vengeance for. But if you do that, you ruin the case for the victims. So you just got to put the victim's needs above your own, and just, do it professionally so they have some shot at justice in the court system. And luckily, we got that with that priest that you're talking about. He got the longest sentence at the time for a child assault type matter, sexual assault on child, and 35 victims over a 20-year period for that one guy. A couple more later on after I'd left. So he's
horrendous, mate.
Troy, I worked for the Director of Public Prosecutions of the Commonwealth for about 27 years, and I was put in, looking at matters where I wasn't a lawyer, but I was a paralegal who would dish out all these files, and it was really hard work, for grooming, and I'd go through all these files, and it's a lot more than people know, and it's hard to prove. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a big gig. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sometimes gets harder and harder. The complexities of the law They're legally designed, not justice designed, and that's what frustrates the community, I think, when they see some of the results coming out.
Yeah, definitely.
Justice's hands as justice's hands are tied at times, the judges, etc. But like any industry, there's some average ones out there as well. So
but when they're after someone, like Bob Ansett, geez, they spend a lot of money and time and get not much. Very, very. Yeah. Anyway, we go on.
Yeah. All right, on to another interesting subject. You give away being a copper, and you go into politics.
I know. It sounds like an episode of Who Dares Wins, but do you really lose?
We're trying to get a mini-series out of
you. I know. My life, I wanted to buy an F-250, and my wife said, that's a midlife crisis. You already have one. You went into Parliament.
What made you think? I mean, did you have people in your ear encouraging you? Was it a thought bubble of your own, and being out in the bush?
I got headhunted.
Right, by the Nationals, yeah.
Yeah, recommended by an old boss of mine to Thomas George, who was the member for Lismore, an old stock and station agent, and he was mates with the local commander up there, and they wanted a candidate for Dubbo, and my old boss recommended me to him. So Duncan Gay, the former roads minister, and Thomas George came to Dubbo, paid me a visit, and basically headhunted me and convinced me to do it. And I said to him during the meeting, I said, well, I'll think about it, but it's not really the right time in my life. And I said, the biggest problem is you'd have to convince my wife.
Yeah, but once you found out how much they paid, it was pretty... sorry.
She went, no, definitely don't do it.
This is the honest truth. I lost 5K per annum when I went into Parliament from what I was getting in the cops.
There you go.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, so I had no idea what they paid. I've never been money driven. So I walked in and, they stopped paying me from the cops. I had to wait to get, the balance of my pay for a month. And they didn't pay me for a month once I started in Parliament.
Yep.
So I was out for 2 months without any coin. I just spent a heap. And people don't understand. I spent $100,000 of my own money to get elected. I never got any of it back because you don't get it back in state Parliament. So you pay a fairly big financial price, especially in the bush, because you've got to pay for fuel, get around. You've got a big area to cover. Got to feed yourself, clothe yourself, and all that. And no one pays for that but yourself. And $100K. I campaigned for 10 months and took extended leave. So a lot of that got blown away. And anyhow, that it was worth it from the experience. Not just someone that's always wanted to serve my community. And when I got approached, I rang Andrew Scipione, the commissioner at the time, because I had worked for him as a staff officer before I went to Dubbo, and just discussed it with him. And he basically said, Troy, you've always been community-minded. You serve the community as a policeman at this sort of a platform. If you get into Parliament, you can serve it on a bigger one.
Yep.
If you lose, you don't lose anything. You just come back, you're still a policeman. So why not give it a go?
Well, that was my next question, Troy, is that obviously being in the police force for 22 years, you're dealing with the public all the time, so that puts you in good stead of dealing with the public in a political role. So what was the difference going to politics as opposed to the police force?
Well, it's a great point you make because both are problem solvers. The community comes here when they're at the end of their tether with something or they need your help. They only come to you at those points in the majority of times. You've got to communicate. You've got to know how to communicate. So the skills are very transferable. The biggest difference is that when you're a politician, they all hit you up. You feel like an ATM because everyone just hits you for money. That's really the difference, and you've got no privacy. You belong to them. Yep. You lose all your anonymity. You lose any privacy. The expectations for stuff is beyond the pale. That the community has a level of ignorance that if you ever call it out, they'd throw rocks at you. But people would say to me, "Good luck when you go down to take on that Julia Gillard down there." And I'm going to state parliament, mate. It's in Sydney, and they say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a footpass." Buggered. If you don't fix it, I'm not going to vote for you next time. I'm going, that's a council issue. It's like, they go, I don't care, I voted for you, so you've got to get it fixed. And so, the expectation on you is unrealistic, but you still got to manage expectations and still deliver in some form and communicate it as effectively as you can. You can't call them ignorant, otherwise you definitely lose their vote.
So what about, you're only in Parliament a couple of years and then you get offered a ministry or a couple of ministries. I mean, the ministry's like the big job. And you got on the front bench.
Were they desperate to get someone?
Or
no one putting their hand up. Wasn't anyone putting their hand up?
Don't, Ray.
You're going to love this. No, they had to be desperate, mate. But you'll love this yarn. So it was Easter 2014.
Yeah.
I was mud crab fishing in North Queensland.
Oh, love it.
Up to my knees and elbows in mud and having a wonderful time.
I love a muddy Troy. I love a good mud crab, mate. Beautiful.
So I've got an uncle and auntie on my wife's side up there, got a river block. So we go up there and it's just sensational. And, I got this, I left the phone at the house and whatever, and I eventually returned, and it was just about cooking from the amount of messages. So I had no idea Barry O'Farrell resigned or anything was going on, because I just had the stubbies on and the work shirt and doing my thing.
Now, this is when Barry resigned over a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the catalyst. Yeah. So I had no idea, and I just washed down, went back into the in-laws' house, and found my phone nearly cooking with about 325 messages, and. And I eventually returned one of them. It was to Andrew Stone. And I said, "Oh, g'day." He said, "Where the hell are you been?" I told him, and he said, "Oh, I need you in Sydney tomorrow. You've been promoted to the cabinet."
Wow.
I went, "What? You're the Marks Minister and Minister for Hospitality, Gaming and Racing." And I said, "What about George?" Because George Shearers is a mate of mine. He said, "No, he's not continuing." I went, "Oh." Then you felt pretty ordinary about, jumping into a job with someone that was you're friends with, and thought, "Oh, Christ." And he said, "I need you." I said, "I can't get here. I've got wife, 2 kids, a dog and a car, and I'm north of Bundaberg. I can't get there." So I drove the next day to get sworn in. So I missed the media conference and all the announcement about who the new ministers were. And I drove, whatever it was, about 18 hours, I think, from north of Bundy back to Dubbo. Got home late, threw the bags and dog out, and basically got up really early, got a flight at 6 o'clock the next morning to Sydney. Just arrived at Government House in time with the wife and kids in tow to get sworn in the ministry. So that's how it all happened, pretty rapidly. So I didn't have much time to think about it. And, it was a crazy, crazy start, and with no expectation. I didn't have any ambition to join the ministry. I was just loving what I was doing. And ironically, I was working as a parliamentary secretary in natural resources. So I was doing a lot of work in water and forestry and native veg and stuff. And in that capacity, like an assistant minister sort of a role, and really enjoying it, and just no idea what was coming, and bang. And then 6 months after I was a minister, I was then the deputy premier and running an election. So
Troy,
it was pretty
ask
quick.
About those first appointments. Sitting there as a politician, if you had said to yourself, "Well, I want to be in the ministry on the front bench," would they have been the portfolios that you would have selected?
No.
There you go. Why do we always put people into portfolios? Like, for example, if I decided to go into politics and they offered me a ministry, I would think it'd have to be something to do with sports, where I played professional cricket and represented Australia, or the media, where I spent 30 years in the media. But they'd probably give me jails.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
And then they put people around you, your advisors, to basically try and tell you how to run your ministry. Is that right, Troy?
Yes and no.
But I bet you didn't let them tell you what to do.
Jeez, mate.
No, I've got a pretty bad habit of that.
Didn't they have all the ministries in a hat and a bit of paper, and then you go, "That's yours"? Sometimes it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got
irony,
to bring yourself up to speed immediately with hospitality, gaming, racing and arts.
Oh, I've got a good yarn for you on that front too. So
please bring it on.
No, you're 100% right. So there's no consultation. It's not a merit-based process. So it's not like where I came from in the cops where it's time on rank and demonstrated experience and skills and whatever else. And the more you try and get a ministry, the less likely you are, which is what I learned later, because I was just doing my job as best I knew it, and people must have noticed and impressed and thought I could do the job and just went him. Didn't consult me. Would you like to be a minister? Are you available to be a minister? None of that. Just you are. See you tomorrow type thing. So it's a really unusual workplace from that point of view. But learning the brief, absolutely. So you get sworn in. They say, "Here's your driver and your car, and they'll take you wherever you need to go." And you walk up and they say, "Here's your office." And there's people that are just working for the guy you're replacing, or the person. And you've got to decide whether you retain any of those or you release them. And then if you release, you obviously got to replace, and then you get to choose those. And so, no, you don't get you get recommended. People say, think about this person, consider it. You get that, but you don't get forced, or I certainly didn't get anyone forced on me from that point of view. And then what happens, you get incoming briefs for your portfolio. And I'm talking about, depends on the size of the portfolio, obviously. And I had 3 ministries straight up, basically. 4. Had 4 ministries straight up, basically. So I would have had 8, 10 lever arch folders full of briefing papers. And the next morning...
So who did you hire to read all them for you?
But the yarn about that, so when I came in, I inherited a thing called lockout laws.
Oh, boo.
Yes. So they're all announced and arranged, but I had to implement them as the minister. The second thing I inherited was the Crown Casino approval. So,
and then you would have been involved in the Greyhounds as well, wouldn't you? Under Mike Baird's. We'll get to that soon.
Involved with, holy Christ, involved. I'll use another word to describe that. Can you swear on this program?
Of course you can. Go for it.
Yeah, but to the Crown one, obviously all the decisions had essentially been made, but all the implementation hadn't been done. I inherited that. So for the first, I think, 4 or 5 weeks of being a minister, I had daily briefings on the documents that I had to sign as a minister of the Crown to make the Crown Casino become a thing, an entity, an actual, and not a restricted gaming facility. So it's a casino without pokies.
Was your hand shaking?
Did you have anxiety?
Well, this is the thing, that the moment I signed all those documents, we went across to, we're in Governor Macquarie Tower, was where the minister's office were then, but now they're above Channel 7 in the Martin Place. We had to go across to another tower into a legal office, and there was a big conference room, and I think from memory it was 14 lever arch folders full of legal documents. I had to go along and sign them all, but I had to be briefed on everything I was signing for weeks and weeks before I did it. And as the moment I finished with the final signature, then a phone call was made and money was transferred from PACA into the state government as their agreed payment. I can't remember the name of it, but so my signature was, $100 million. There you go. Cool.
See, there it is. There it is. It's always the cash.
No brown paper bags there, baby.
No brown paper bags, 14 lever arch folders. That's how it works.
That's right.
Oh,
wow.
That's, mate, does anyone want a drink? I'm going to go out. Does anyone feel like a drink?
Well, when you talk, you don't think about, we all sign a lot of papers and that, but on the signing of that last document, bang, there it is. That's the deal. Get it transferred in the bank. Unbelievable.
This is a true story. I reckon I heard the words cha-ching from somebody.
What did I miss out on?
And poor old Muggins, he got 0. So there you go. That's the way it works.
On politics, Troy, Whit was telling me recently you're watching a series. What was ABC Nemesis? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, did you watch Nemesis, Troy?
No.
Oh,
I try to avoid it now. Yeah, everyone's told me about it.
Oh, mate.
I'm still, what do they call it? I'm still defragging, or I'm still desensitising myself from the career.
So where I'm going,
mostly because of the Greyhounds. So.
Yeah, wow. Well, yeah. So where I was going to go with that is that being in politics, like dealing with, all that Machiavellian stuff and the backstabbing and all that. That's another layer again of you're trying to do the best you can at the job, but then you've got all that going on as well. Like that's huge to deal with, right?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it took me about 18 months to sort of shake it off, using a Taylor Swift quote, but you just, everyone's doing it these days apparently. So, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's, so I went into Parliament just to be the local rep. We needed hospitals in our area, and I ended up getting 6 built in 8 years, which I'm really proud of, and got over $2 billion investment into the Dubbo region electorate for the 8-year period into mad infrastructure, which I'm enormously proud of and all that sort of stuff. But I really hated the politics. So the parliamentary process I was pretty comfortable with, because a lot of it's like a court. It operates a lot of similarities because it comes out of the Westminster system. So not that hard to learn. Being in the cops, I knew how government worked, because as a cop you deal with lots of different government departments. So you sort of have a pretty step-up knowledge of how all that works. I didn't find any of that challenging. The thing I was really crap at was the politics. because I didn't give a shit about it, basically. I wasn't interested in any of the factional sort of things, or I wasn't.
I wanted to ask you about that, Troy. When you joined, because I'm aware in the Labor and the Liberal Party, there's genuine factions. You've got to be in the left or the right or the centre left or the centre. Is it the same in the Nationals? There's factions within that as soon as you're going to... There's not? No, that's surprising.
There's no factions, but it's probably worse in some regards is that there's really selfish personalities. So,
we find them in all areas of life.
Well, we do, but they just, I don't know, they seem to be heightened in that because you're a small
people
party.
Or narcissism or...
Narcissism on steroids
Wow.
with a couple of them. But then you get the best people in the world in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's such a big change. And the only sort of factionalism you have is basically we used to call ourselves the salties or the freshies because the freshwater nats where the freshwater rivers were, or the coastal nats where the saltwater was. So that was the only definitions, but, there was no actual factions, no.
I know you were state, but did you get to hang out with Barnaby much?
Because
he's a classic. I've met him a couple of times. What a classic.
Yeah. So there's another good story. So his now wife was my media staff of Vicky when they got together. So I got to have a few conversations with Barnaby and calling him a prick and all sorts of things. Taken a very good media operator away. So.
Yes, unbelievable.
Yeah. So Barnaby, when he was the deputy PM and leader of the federal party, while I was leader of the state, we did a bit together at that time. Yeah.
Uh-huh. On that kind of thing too, Widow, you've mentioned Peter Garrett, who you know. And Tom, when he was in federal parliament and the pink bats thing, and also someone who's wanted to go in there for the best intentions, but came out and was sort of spat out, and
that's all he said to me. He just wanted to try and make a difference, and then you get caught up in the faction side of it, and I think when Peter was talking to me about that, he was, I think, genuinely surprised what it was really like once you got in there and in the grind of Parliament. And it can be a nasty place to be, hey, whether that's federal or state. It can be
everywhere.
Oh, man, it's really crazy. Yeah. Should we move on from politics?
One more question on politics. I think under Gladys you became the police minister. Is that correct? Was that where you?
No, I was police. When I was deputy premier, I was also police minister.
Yep.
But I lost the arts and the licensing and the racing portfolios.
And
when Gladys came in, I went
emergency services.
I picked up emergency services. Yeah.
What do you mean you lost? What do you mean you lost when you say you lost? Was there a win?
They went to someone else. Yeah, no. I ended up I loved the arts portfolio and the other stuff I was doing, the racing and all that.
I would love that.
Yeah, they were really great portfolio, great people, really good stakeholders and that sort of stuff. And I just loved all the work I did ultimately. But you're always proud to serve, and having cops and emergency service try and look after their interests and look after them was a real privilege.
Mate, police and emergency services, that'd be two of the biggest ministries, wouldn't they? And the busiest, and so many people involved, and emergency services. I mean, we've had plenty of call for emergency services in the last 5 to 8 years with the floods and all this sort of stuff.
Even in the podcast, we've had a few.
Yeah, well, we had in my time we had the Lint Cafe Seige, so I was there. I watched that from my office at the beginning. Then I was in the State Crisis Centre for the entirety of it.
When did you sleep?
Yes, how did you sleep? God.
I didn't. I was the only one that stayed awake for the whole thing. So
I got some stuff that you can take.
Police minister, that police minister.
As the police minister and the minister for emergency services, I mean, the stuff that come across your desk then must have been unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. So the William Tyrell disappearance and $1 million reward was in my time. Levinson stuff was in my time. We had the Curtis Chang terrorist murder at Parramatta headquarters. That was in my time.
Yeah.
What about the trams?
The trams?
Yeah, in Sydney. Sydney trams.
In my time, but not my fault.
Not
No.
Wrong portfolio, Ray.
Really?
Yeah, wrong.
But he had so many.
No, in the wrong portfolio, Ray. He thought we were interviewing Cary Grant today. I said, he's an old actor from America. What are you talking about? I don't even know he's alive.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, no, there's just a heap of stuff. We brought in the toughest bikie legislation in the country during the time, so that made me really popular. So I had terrorists unhappy, terrorists and bikies really unhappy with me, and anyone that owned a Greyhound. So I had the three.
Wow.
Did you get
coming at me.
any? I don't know whether you can mention this, but is there threats? I mean, did you get any threats from those individual groups at all?
Yeah. Me and my kids, and we had police protection for a while there, and additional security measures. So we had had a few people charged, and the ones you worry about is the ones you don't hear about. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And a couple with mental health issues were institutionalised and wrote some pretty terrible stuff that you don't tell the wife and kids about because you'd never want them to know. But some things that worry the guts out of you. And
during that time, when you were going through that, did you ever think, I can't do this anymore, or I need to? Because when your kids start getting threatened, that's when you would look at yourself
changes
going,
everything.
well, this is different now. So did you ever go through that?
Yeah, without question. And 8 years from a political point of view is not a big, long career, and that was absolutely a massive part of why I left when I did. I just couldn't do it anymore. And you hear this term, you live in a bubble, and that it's absolutely true. It's not a Canberra bubble. It's just a political bubble that what you think's important or what you think you need to do just isn't reality. Yep. And the truth is, I just started losing my family. The connectivity. My kids were 9, 11 when I started, so they're really influential years into teenagers and all that. They just wanted dad home. And sure, my kids would go to me with events, and they'd be in the Liverpool dressing rooms, or they'd be backstage at The Voice or X Factor, or meeting famous people. They had plenty of blessings and opportunities for unbelievable experiences, But they didn't care about any of those kids. They just wanted, my son wanted me to play cricket in the backyard with him, and my daughter wanted me to take her out for a coffee or a cafe thing and have a chat when she needed to talk to her dad. And in my final speech, I gave the example that she was dancing at a big community thing and dislocated a knee, and all she said was, "I want my dad," and I wasn't there. I was at something I can't even remember what it was because it seemed to be more important at the time. And my son kicked the winning goal in the soccer grand final, and the coach, who was a mate of mine, rang me to tell me what had happened, all that, so I could sort of feel like I was part of it. I'm missing a special milestone in his life, and if you ask me why I missed that for what event I was at, I still don't know. I couldn't tell you. And that's where you lose touch with the reality. And I was away being a country MP and deputy premier and stuff. You're away from home 200 plus nights a year. It's a big toll that just the general public have no clue about. So I think you're all privileged and entitled for everything, but they don't understand the price you really pay.
On sport, you brought that up with your kids. Your childhood, you've mentioned just before that you played a wide variety of sports, but rugby league was one of those sports, yeah?
Yeah. I played league, cricket, swam, did horse sports, hockey. No AFL anyway. No, the field hockey. So we had the second.
Ray, there's no ice hockey out in country New South Wales.
That's what Peter Beattie said.
He asked Peter Beattie. Peter Beattie said he played hockey in Atherton, where he grew up, and Ray said, "What, ice hockey? No ice hockey up there, mate."
Someone's going to say, "Yep."
Someone's going to build an ice hockey rink.
Yeah, well, there's one at Macquarie.
You struggle to get ice in the fridge.
That's right.
But yeah, so rugby league and we obviously cricket with us, and rugby league's a big thing for us here. But and then you you got injured when you were 18, I believe, or knee injury, and then you started refereeing as well and setting up a few different competitions, or.
Yeah. So I played schoolboys, like in proper schoolboys. There wasn't actually club teams in Tamworth, so you played for your school on the weekend, and then midweek for shield matches and stuff, University Shield and others, different shields at different ages. Then I played for my local club team, the village team, Katingal, in the Group 4, where I was growing up, and that was the same year I was joining. So I was going to play for West Tamworth in the senior Group 4 competition against the Craigie boys and the Boomerangs and Narrabri's and that sort of an area, Canada and that. Yep. But my old man wouldn't let me because he thought I'd get injured and ruin the the recruitment. So I got accepted to go to the police in February, but I couldn't join until October because I wasn't old enough. I had to wait until I was old enough. And so he just didn't want me to get injured and ruin the chance of that. So I just played with the local team. And then I went to the Cops, joined the Cops with Tony Hearn, who played for North Sydney and Queensland in the Origin, and Steve Worthington, an old former St George Dragon. They were both in my police class as footballers. So, and then when I got posted, I got sent to Gilgandra out of the academy, which is just north of Dubbo in Group 11. And I was trialling for the Panthers in the Group 11, and I then snapped my knee during a trial game, and that was the end of the career for there. And then I just turned to refereeing and refereed for 15 years, and then set up some competitions for this country rugby league out at Walgett, Perth, Brewarrina area, which is still going to this day. Set it up in 2000. It's called it's got a new name now. It was the Bowen Darling Rugby League out there now. So and then got into administration of rugby league at that level, and ultimately ended up doing the IRL.
Well, we had Sean Hampstead on the podcast previously. We haven't published his episode yet, but obviously a policeman.
Because it was really boring, eh?
No, it was great.
Was it all right?
He was
fantastic.
He was so good. But he had a similar thing too, where he injured himself playing football in Mudgee, I think it was, as a kid, and turned to refereeing. But that's what we've talked about before, this synergy between being in the police and refereeing or rugby league. It's quite common, A lot of coppers of love rugby league or have moved into rugby league. All of that stuff you're talking about, you were doing that when you're in the police force?
It's just like your hobby, it's just you do it, you work full shifts and whatever, and then you just go off and be part of the community basically, and be part of the footy team and or referee or whatever else. And Paul Simpkins, the NRL referee, was also in my police class as well. So to the combination, it's following like a Bill Harrigan example. Yeah,
another one. There's just heaps. There's heaps.
Paul Sirenen, Craig Young. Over the years, there's been tons. The Manly hooker, Charlie.
Charlie Watts.
Charlie Watts, the drummer for Rain.
Charlie Hegarty. I think it was. Manly hooker.
Mal Cochran.
There's cops in the rugby league, thick and really heavy. So made a big contribution. And there was I think there still is a police rugby league competition. Yes, because I was representing Orana Police, like Western New South Wales Police versus the Penrith Police team. They came out to Dubbo to have a game, and I played against Mark Bugden.
He's a tough rooster.
And he laid a headbutt on me and just smiled.
Because that was okay then, wasn't it?
Yeah, all right.
That Liverpool case,
I saw recently on social media.
I'm still dizzy. I think I'm still dizzy.
I saw recently on social media was a New South Wales police side was over in France playing a few local French sides. So it's a good thing. The coppers getting together and playing. So
yeah, and then all the fireys do it now, and all the armed forces. Keeps them off the streets out of trouble. I just want to know what happens when they get sent off or sin binned.
How did you get involved in the International Rugby League?
Yeah, essentially Peter V'landys, who I worked with closely when I was the racing minister.
Bloody V'landys' name comes up again and again and again. He's a legend, isn't he?
We love him. We love him.
PVL. So I worked with him for a number of years as racing minister, and he's rich and he's really infamous for all the wonderful things happening in racing in New South Wales, like the Everest and the championships and all the wonderful Golden Eagles and all that. Well, I'm the dude that got him all the money to be able to do that, but I get nothing out of it.
You get nothing out of anything.
No, you've been very badly treated, Troy.
Don't worry.
Too honest, mate. You're too honest.
That mini-series are going. Don't worry, mate.
Well, we've been dying to get you on because Ray and I myself, we're massive fans of the international game.
I love it.
Right, and we love watching all these Minnow nations play each other, like Serbia and the Czech Republic. And our favourite...
True story.
We've taken on a side here at the podcast, the Mad Squirrels from the Czech Republic.
Fantastic.
We think they have the best name, the best jersey. But, so we've been hanging to get you on to talk about International Rugby League. So, how long have you been the chairman for? Yes, I
went on January 2020, and then 6 weeks later COVID hit, which was fantastic.
Yeah, gave you a bit of a break, didn't it?
No, it wasn't a break. It was quite the opposite, actually.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, because we had to keep the company alive with no revenue. Yes. And so I was
no money.
I know. And I was put on, I was asked to join Project Apollo. So I did that with Wayne Pearce and PVL.
Right.
So I was part of the committee that got the NRL back up, and we had to mothball and try and get the IRL to survive without any income coming in for 2 years. So we actually got busier in the voluntary job. But PVL just asked me to apply for it basically because of my relationship and experience with him through racing. And I loved every minute. And then 12 months later, the chairman became the boss of the International Cricket Council, Greg Barclay. So I then became chairman. So
right.
That was 12 months later, about April of 21, I've been the chairman. And it's just been an incredible ride. And Wayne Bennett's been a really big supporter and confidant, helping me along the way. I've got to tell you a quick story about Wayne.
Please.
When I was going around meeting club CEOs, coaches, and anyone that had experience in the international game, just to introduce myself, but also to learn from them. He sat down and, he doesn't say a lot, and he's in the room, he's looking at me, and he sort of said, "Oh, what's your background?" I said, I've just finished in Parliament, was Deputy Premier, did this and that. And he sort of, his eyes went down a bit, like, oh, here we go. And I said, before that, I was a cop for 22 years, and his eyes lit up. And he looked at me, and he said, well, in this job you're doing, you'll need about 20% of that politics bullshit and 80% cops.
There you go. Of course, Wayne's an ex-copper as well, isn't he?
He is. Wayne's an ex-copper, as is his brother, and Mal Meningo. There's a famous
Mal's
one.
another
He's an
ex-copper.
There's
That's
another
right,
ex-copper.
Well, what's it like working with him? Because he's such a legend of the game and won so many comps, and just that must have been a fascinating experience on its own.
I've met Wayne a couple of times, and he's a man of very few words, and this is what he said to me. We sat down at a cricket lunch, and he was the guest speaker. And he just...
Fuck off with.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say. He just wanted to talk about cricket. Wanted to talk about cricket, strategies for the game. If you're playing a test match, what was it like on the last day, on the fifth day, if you were bowling or batting. Really interested in all that. And he spoke so much at the table. Everybody he doesn't waste his words, but he spoke a lot more than what people thought. But what a fascinating bloke, Troy. Fascinating.
He is, mate, I feel enormously privileged that, we talk, semi-regularly and we have great conversations, and I just absorb and soak up everything he's talking about. But the rotten bugger, all he wants to talk to me about is water, because he's got a farm and he wants to know this and he wants to know that, and all I want to talk to him about is rugby league. So
because you are the Inspector General of Water Compliance.
Where'd you dig that up from?
Yeah, dug that up. That'll be our last question. We'll get to that last. We're talking rugby league, Ray.
Okay.
Rugby league.
Sorry, Troy. As I don't know if you know, but Wayne Junior Pearce, we play in music and bands with him. The three of us.
The three of us play with Junior.
With Junior,
we've got a gig
great
tomorrow
man,
night.
Junior.
Yeah, we've got. So we'll expect to see a Toon Gabby RSL.
Tomorrow.
Come and say hello and come and see the Wit and Junior perform. But just wondering about Junior when you first joined the band, and one of the guys wasn't getting one of the songs, and he asked him to do a 400. And a couple of push-ups and that.
As punishment.
He
got a few notes wrong.
Did he do anything like that to you guys? They go, come on. Did he get? Have we got someone better? Have you got another bloke we can replace? Have you got anyone from reserve grade that you can bring up? Did he use any of those analogies?
I can imagine Junior saying to PVO, 20 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. Fernandes would go, fuck off, Junior. What are you talking about? Unbelievable. No, Junior's great, isn't he?
He's a lovely
guy. He's a great man. And the problem with Junior is still, I don't know how old he is now, but he's still as fit as you know.
Unbelievable.
And he looks like he could pull the headgear on. I know. He looks like he could pull the headgear on immediately and run out for the Tigers tomorrow.
Well, in the band room, when we do a gig, he takes his shirt off to change into his stage gear. And we're all saying, Junior, put your shirt on.
Put your shades wanker. Yeah.
Well, I tell you who loves Junior is my wife, because all he does is into me. He's into me about my diet. He's giving
me all these tablets.
I pick up a little cake or something, have a crack at it, and he just like glares at me like I'm about to commit murder or something. So I put it back down.
Eyes. Yeah, I know.
And I tell Tony, my wife Tony, I'm like, Junior's all over me. You won't let me have a sausage roll or nothing. He goes, I love that man.
But another thing about Junior, Dawsey, he could probably tell you the story about asking about the international game, and he's asked about some of the countries.
Oh, yeah, because, just in the band room one time talking about my love for the Mad Squirrels, and Junior's looking at me like, going, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no idea about this stuff. He goes, I need to get Troy Grant onto the podcast.
Yeah, because you go about the Mad Squirrel.
What other countries play rugby league? He couldn't believe it.
Because, sorry, go ahead, Troy.
I'll list the 58 of them for you.
There you go.
I've got 51 in front of me, right?
Yeah.
But some of them, can we just ask you about some of these countries?
Go for your life.
Okay, see if you know your Cameroon. How they going?
Oh, you want me to know? Yeah, Cameroon are going really well. Africa is amazing in relation to how quickly they're growing, particularly the women's game. It's just blowing us away. So what do you want to know about Cameroon?
How are they going? Because I noticed Cameroon just ahead in Kenya. This is I think a 2022 list or a 23, and I know there's been a bit of movement by some of the Eastern Bloc countries and that. But Cameroon, where do they get like referees and the coaching? You know, like surely they have to do coaching levels, you know, and I know when I used to be in the junior rugby league here, and I'd have to go and do coaching courses, and we'd have to follow all these set rules and that. Where do they get all that from?
Yeah, same us. That's exactly what our job is. So our job is to grow the game of playing rugby league across the world, essentially. So we own the rules, and we are helping with the membership. They become an observer, affiliate, or a full member of ours, and they get different support and resourcing depending on their level of membership. And we provide them with coaching and technical assistance in packages, etc., and officiating, and also government support. So that's what our job is, exactly that.
Right.
And then we sanction their international matches, and the sanctioning of those are at different levels. Yep. So the higher grade games get different sanctioning points to the lower grades. They have regional championships, have bilaterals, and then they participate in World Cups, etc. If they qualify.
I don't think you guys are doing your job, because we was talking to an ex-Canadian president of the Rugby League, and he said we're not getting any help from the NRL.
From the IRL.
IRL.
Yeah,
NRL.
No, he's not.
Is it?
No, the IRL. No, that's us. Yeah, and he's not 100% wrong, because we only just got money because we didn't have any money from COVID for a couple of years. So we held our World Cup in 2022 after it was postponed from 21. So we're just catching back up, and we had to get all the different training and technical and all the stuff translated into, multiple languages and that sort of stuff. So
no, that's fantastic, mate. Fantastic. I was just trying to get a joke out of you.
Canada's right. No, he's right. The Canadians have been into my chops for weeks and months and whatever else.
So he's another liar. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't use that word. What could I use?
On that, Troy, like I've saw as a quote from you before, saying when you first became the chairman of the IRL, it was run like a tuck shop, that some of the members were in it for themselves and just took the money and whatever. So obviously you came in and changed all that. And so how are you generating income for all these international countries? How does that work?
Where does the money come from, Troy?
Yeah, so that's great. So the big nations, excuse me, boys, the big nations draw crowds, and we get a cut of the ticketed side of it, basically like the gate entry fee. We get a percentage. That's part of the fee they pay for the sanctioning of the game. Then we use that revenue to redivert to the nations. We've only got 2 full-time employees. We're really small. The rest of it's mostly volunteer type basis stuff, or a little bit of contractual stuff.
So, the NRL, for every game that the NRL plays, the IRL gets a little slice of that.
Yes. Australia play the Kangaroos play the Kiwis. We get a cut of that. Or any international.
Only international, not club games, not games on. No. Okay, only internationals. Yep.
Only international matches, and then that's right. And then we sell the rights to the World Cup. So in April, we've got a board meeting on Tuesday in Singapore.
Yep.
To decide who's going to host the 26th World Cup
and
for men, women,
and sponsorships in for that.
Come
television rights,
and all the broadcasting rights. So that's where our revenue comes from. And then we're like a not-for-profit organisation. Essentially, we get the money in and we redistribute it. So we run very lean as an organisation, and we haven't had that revenue because of the COVID and some tuck shop management. So we're just starting to get back on our feet and then reinvesting in the nations, and we give them member grants as well. So we're just starting to, trend upwards, I guess, after a lot of hard work and some really frustrating years.
Well, on that too, we were in Las Vegas for the podcast, watching the game. Junior helped us out and set us up a room at the Hilton. And
but you guys are better at junkets than I was at a poly.
We're trying.
Mate,
now it's in the trough.
One of the guys that we interviewed was David Newey, who was David New, who basically started the game off of his own bat in the United States and played for St George in the late 80s. But he was fascinating. It was talking about taking the Tomahawks to Russia and things like that. And he's just, we're going to go to Las Vegas next year.
Was that a bomb?
Jimi Hendrix feedback.
But yeah, so Las Vegas next year we're going to go, and I'm sure that's been a big help growing the international game, I suppose, as well.
Oh, without doubt. And we've just done a heap of governance reform in the USA. So in the media in the last week or so, we've got Joe Kelly and Bernie Gurr, two really top administrators have just been appointed as independent directors. So they will help the United States, who are very fractured. They all want to do it differently from the West Coast to the East Coast, state by state, to become a united body. So really big upside for the United States in years to come. And Vegas has been a massive help in that regard, and even worldwide, just have the eyes on the game and the interest levels have risen, and we benefit from that. So don't get a direct funding stream or anything, but we just get the goodwill, the interest, the bigger participation, and that just generates more activity, I guess, for us to take the opportunity to benefit from.
So the IRL viewed Vegas as a huge success?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, you got to remember is everyone wants instant gratification in the world this day and age. You've got to invest. Everyone's worried about the destination, never worried about what you do on the journey.
Yeah.
And this is a journey that they've said, I think it's 4 or 5 years they've committed to.
5 year deal.
Years,
5 years. Assess it at 5 years if it's successful or not. But along the way, there's milestone markers to see what's working and what's not, so you can adjust and see what's successful and what's not. But yeah, absolutely. I go year one, massive success, because even if the crowd was, 10,000 less than they thought, the goodwill and the interest back home is giving them record crowds, and their broadcast numbers are up. So it's had a flow-on benefit. So there's benefit at one end. It's not just always direct benefit. There's indirect benefits as well. So, I think congrats to PVL and Andy Rabdale and the whole team, and good on them. And it absolutely helps us from an IRL perspective.
Gotcha. One more thing on that before we throw to Mike for the last question is that Ray and I, because we're so passionate about the international game, if you've only got 2 full-time employees, just give us a call anytime. No. We'll travel anywhere. We love a junket. We'll travel anywhere.
And would like to help, mate, really, because I was involved with the junior rugby league here at North Ryde Hawks. And look, I remember we used to get the kids, when they grow out of their boots, and we'd send them over to Fiji and we'd send them over. Yep. And these countries just loved Papua New Guinea. They would love all this stuff. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of big junior clubs like out Penrith and out where Dawsey comes from. They would love someone to come over to them and go, look, you want to give your old jumpers or your old,
old boots or whatever.
So if you need any help, he's fair dinkum. We'll be there to help, if you need
good on you, Ray. Jeez,
we appreciate any and all the help we can get and take. So I really think that's terrific. So I think we should meet in Vegas next year to talk about it.
That'll do. We're going. Yeah. We're planning already. Don't worry. All right. Last question. And look, thanks for your time, mate, today. It's been a fascinating story. But last question.
Yeah.
You're the Inspector General of Water Compliance for the Murray-Darling Basin.
Oh, no.
2020. You're the first person to be appointed to that role.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm 65 now. I've been hearing about the Murray-Darling Basin and the arguments over it, the purchase or repurchase of water licences. How do we get it is, one of the great veins of water. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, how are you going with all that? Because you're dealing with two governments. You're dealing with all of the people that have these water licences, and they've got them for years. I mean, how are you going with it, mate? Because it needs to be done, and a solution needs to be found.
Yeah, look, it's a tough gig, and if you quickly just go back and recap my career, cop, referee, politician, water. What sort of lunatic am I? Like
a big one?
Absolutely. You're a legend, mate.
I'm a walking human punching bag. Like, what's going on?
And I'd love to talk to you about the Warragamba Dam never overflowing and the soul.
That's not in the basin. That's not in the basin. That's not in the basin.
No. Is it only you're only directly involved in the Murray-Darling Basin?
Yeah, that's right. Just the Murray-Darling Basin.
Yeah.
There is some talk about whether it goes fully national or not, but but that's big enough. It's Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and the ACT are in the basin. It's over 1 million square kilometres.
So hang on, you're dealing with multiple governments. I only said 2. You're dealing with 3 state governments and
5.
And 5 governments.
Five
That's
in the
right.
Commonwealth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I oversight the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. I oversight water trading activities, oversight the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder on top of that.
Geez, no wonder you look like you're 120, mate. Don't you? What's going on? Now, you're actually looking all right, Troy, with all this stuff.
Hey, Troy, you must have a good team, really. You must have a really good team. Just
I'm super happy. We're only small. Yeah, exactly. We're only a pretty small team.
Yeah.
But we pack a bit of punch because the legislation we have like Royal Commission powers where we can have inquiries and we can hold people's feet to the fire.
Yep.
So our job is to make sure everyone else is doing their job properly, independently.
Great. Yeah.
And that hasn't been around until we got created. And it was a big need because it is a mess without question. I've said so. If you ever want a little bit of entertainment, watch me give evidence at Senate estimates because I actually tell the truth and there's a bit of colourful language from time to time and I call people morons and all sorts of things like that, which usually makes the paper. But there's a big journey to go. A lot of good things have happened in the reform over the last 12 years.
Yeah.
But the problem is the way it was built, it was just put together all by compromise and trying to please everyone and end up pleasing no one, if that makes sense. There's that many things to get improved, and it's a big journey, but that's what we're there for. We're there to do our best to fix it and give everyone a fair crack and make sure that there's balance and fairness everywhere, and that's the ultimate game, I guess.
How long do you think you'll stay doing that?
Well, I've got a 4+4 contract, so the most I can do under law is 8 years.
Yep.
So I've got 18 months to go on my current 4-year term.
And then you can go another 4, yep.
If they want me to, and if I agree to. So I don't know. I might be upsetting too many people, and they say don't come Monday,
mate.
And I'll come and see if you guys have got a gig going or something. I don't know.
But mate, that super keeps growing every year, mate. So just look at that, okay?
I thought the music business was punishing, but we got nothing on what
we
we've
got.
got.
Nothing on that.
We got nothing.
And stuff.
10 times nothing, still nothing.
That's it, Now, Troy, when you hear this music, that means we've come to the end of another wonderful How's the Podcast.
How's that?
Good on you,
Thanks
mate.
so
much,
mate. Thank you very much
Lovely
for your
talking
time.
to you.
Troy.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, really appreciate being on a program and all the support.
Good on
Thanks,
you, mate.
boys.
We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, brother.
Thanks for being good sport, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Remarkable.
Thanks, mate.